Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be filming my October wrap-up. In October, I read 22 books with a 3.67 star rating average, which I think is pretty good in terms of a rating average. It's not super high, obviously, but I think for a rating average, it's pretty high. So I think I had a decent month in terms of books that I liked. I think there were quite a few 3 stars. I have a pretty broad range of genres. I read quite a few thrillers and mysteries this month, obviously because it was October, so I want to prioritize those. Since there are so many books to get through, let's just get started. My first book is The Collective Regrets of Clover, and this one I gave 4.5 stars. I've never read a book with a similar premise, and I wasn't sure going in if I would like it, and I've been meaning to pick it up, so I did, especially because our main character is a death doula, so I thought it would be a good like non-thriller book for October, which it was. We have our main character Clover, and she is a death doula, like I mentioned. On the back it says, "What's the point in giving someone a beautiful death if you can't give yourself a beautiful life?" which I absolutely loved. Clover has been around death since she was really young. Ever since then, she's kind of been interested in death, but not in like a morbid way, more just like an existential kind of way. However, she works really hard. She spends so much time with the dying that she barely has time for her own life. However, the wishes of one of her dying clients takes her kind of down a path where she has to explore what she's getting from life, how she's living life, how she's not really living life to the fullest. And there's a little bit of a romance in this. I love Clover. She was such a good main character. I was rooting for her the whole time, and this one I would just highly recommend. That one was more just general fiction, and now I'm going to go into thrillers and mystery. The first one in this category is The Last One at the Wedding, and this is by the same author that wrote Hidden Pictures, which I absolutely loved. I loved Hidden Pictures so much. So I was really excited for this one, but it was kind of a letdown. I gave it 3.5 stars. We have our main character Frank, and his daughter is about to get married. She's marrying into this super well-known, wealthy, like tech family. He's very nervous because he just doesn't really get along with his family. He lives in a very small town. He's not super wealthy, and so he just doesn't really see what they would have in common. He definitely feels like he has something to prove to this family, and when he goes to meet them, he definitely feels like something's off, but he's not sure what it is. It's more of a mystery with some thriller elements, I would say. I just found myself kind of bored. I wasn't super invested in the storyline or the characters, so I definitely found this one to be a disappointment. I also read The Night Guest, and this one is a relatively short horror novel. I'm not one to read horror. I think it was more like horror light, although there were definitely some like darker, disturbing aspects. This one, definitely check trigger warnings before you read it. Like, definitely check trigger warnings, especially for like some animal stuff. This one is translated. It's set in Iceland. Our main character is constantly tired. She definitely knows something's wrong, but the doctors aren't finding anything. So then she puts like a smartwatch on or something to track her steps, and she wakes up in the morning and finds that she's walked like 40,000 steps during the night, but she doesn't remember any of it. Sometimes she's like covered in blood. There's like weird stuff happening, and that's all I'm gonna say about this one. It's definitely weird, and the ending left much to be desired. A lot of the Goodreads reviews are mentioning the ending, I noticed, and how it's too unresolved. There's definitely like a time and a place for a vague ending where you don't really know and you are left to kind of either wonder or like theorize, but this one was just too vague to the point where like it just felt abrupt. So if you like short horror novels, I would definitely check this one out, but again, definitely check the trigger warnings. Next, I read Last Girl Ghosted, and this one I gave 3 stars. I had high expectations for this one, but it kind of fell a bit short for me, but it was definitely a quick read. We have our main character Ren, and she matches with this guy on a dating app, and they go out for dinner. They start dating, and then on Goodreads it says it turns into this like deadly cat and mouse game. After like 3 months of dating Adam, she gets ghosted completely, and she doesn't know what happened. She doesn't really believe that he could have just like up and left and ghosted her, so she starts to investigate to see what could have happened. Then she is approached by a private investigator, and then it just gets super wild super fast. It didn't feel super fleshed out, but it was a pretty good like quick thriller read. Next, I read The Stepson, and this one I also gave 3 stars. This one is told in multiple points of view and multiple timelines, which I love in thrillers. I'm not going to go into this one too much, but there's dark family secrets. A mom goes missing after a dad's tragic death. People are looking into it, trying to figure out what happened. They don't know if she left of her own free will or if she was taken. It's very much like a stereotypical thriller plot recipe. And like the previous one, I was just looking for like a quick fast-paced thriller, and it did its job. Next, I read The Boyfriend, which is Frida McFadden's newest one. This one wasn't like a typical Frida McFadden, which left me kind of disappointed. I gave it 3.5 stars, which is pretty good, but not as good as I normally rate Frida McFadden. She's definitely more of like a popcorn thriller where it's just super entertaining. There's lots of twists. There's lots of like gasp-worthy moments, but this one wasn't quite that, so I was a bit disappointed, but it was still very entertaining. There were still definitely some like major twists, but I think my expectations were just too high for this one. We have our main character, Sydney, and it says that she's looking for the perfect man and he is looking for the perfect victim. This one is told in multiple points of view. There's some flashbacks. Given that it's Frida McFadden, I don't want to go too much into it just because with Frida McFadden, I think the best way to do it is to go in as blind as possible. So I'm just gonna leave it there, but it was very entertaining and I would really recommend it if you do like Frida McFadden. Next, I read The Mystery Guest, which is the sequel to The Maid, and this one's more of like a cozy mystery. I'm not going to go into the synopsis for the sequel because I don't want to give spoilers for the first one. This is the first one, and we have our main character, Molly. She is a maid at a very prestigious hotel. This man and his wife stay there on a pretty regular basis. They're very wealthy, and one day Molly walks into their room to clean it, and the husband has been like unalived. So she walks in on that. She feels like she needs to figure it out on her own because the police are just honing in on her and kind of have tunnel vision. Molly is very quirky. I love her as a main character. She's quirky, she's funny, she's very blunt and like no nonsense. Her relationship with her grandma is super cute. She lives with her grandma. She was raised by her grandma. And I would really recommend these as like a cozy mystery series. A new Christmas novella came out and I'm about to pick that one up and I'm very excited. Next, I have Brie, Careful What You Wish For, and this is the fourth in the grilled cheese mystery series. This one is a super cute cozy mystery series. I absolutely love it. I recommend it to everyone that likes cozy mysteries. I'm not going to go into the synopsis for this one because it's the fourth, but in the first one, our main character Carly runs a grilled cheese shop in a very small town. She is at the center of an investigation because someone was unalived. She starts her own investigation like they always do in cozy mysteries. I really love it. The cast of characters are great. The setting is adorable. And if you like cozy mysteries, I would really recommend this one. The next is The House in the Woods. And this one I gave 3 stars. In this one, our main character, Emily, and her boyfriend, Max, takes her out of town to a house in the woods as like a little vacation. However, she's becoming very paranoid. She believes someone is watching them and she feels like something bad is going to happen. This one is very suspenseful. It's very much a thriller and I really like that aspect. It did feel very surface level, but it does have multiple points of view, multiple timelines. I believe there's some flashbacks as well. It was just like a very quick page turner. I would really recommend it if you need to get out of a slump and you want to just read like a really fast-paced thriller. Lastly, for this category, I read If We Were Villains, and this one I gave 4.25 stars. I've been wanting to read this for a very long time, but I was super intimidated. But now that I've read it, I definitely didn't need to be that intimidated. This one isn't really a thriller. It's more of like a dark academia mystery. So in this one, we have 2 timelines, I believe. We have present day, but the majority is set back when our main character, Oliver, was in university. He had a group of friends. Present day, he's just getting out of prison for unaliving someone, but he may or may not have actually done it. So we just get the story of this friend group developing, all of the like drama within the group. I really liked it. Leading up to kind of like the climax of the story was very interesting and I would really recommend this one. I feel like I'm the last one to read it, but I would highly recommend it. I feel like it would be a really good November pick as well. I had to change my battery if there's a bit of an angle change. Next category is going to be romance, and this one I only have 2 books. The first one being Daydream, and this is the third in the Maple Hill series, the first one being Icebreaker. I absolutely love this one. I gave it 5 stars. I think this was my favorite book that I read in October. This one has 2 points of view. We have Hallie and we have Henry. Henry we've already met. He was in Icebreaker. He's on the hockey team that one of the main characters from Icebreaker is on. So we've already met Henry. I'm so excited that we got a Henry book. This one reminded me a lot of Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, except it's set in university. But we deal with a lot of mental health stuff, both on Hallie's end, with her and her family, as well as Henry. Hallie is helping Henry with some of his school stuff. They're just so sweet together, and I would highly recommend this series. The next one is The Do-Over, and this one is YA. We have our main character, Emily, and she is stuck in some sort of weird like Valentine's Day time loop where she's been waking up and every day is the same like crappy Valentine's Day over and over, and she's trying to get out of it, so she's trying to do a bunch of different things. There's some crappy stuff that happened on the first Valentine's Day that she keeps trying to make like not happen day after day again while this time loop is going on. However, she's having issues with that. She becomes friends with a guy in her class, and while she's trying to figure out this time loop thing, they get closer. It's a really sweet story. You see a lot of her being a teen and having, you know, those typical teen girl issues. And this one was really sweet. I really liked it. And this was actually my first book by Lynn Painter. The next category is going to be fantasy, and I have some YA and some adult like mixed within this category. The first one is The 13th Child, and this is by the same author that wrote House of Salt and Sorrow. So I was very excited for this one. I loved that book. I didn't love the sequel of that one, which is House of Roots and Ruin, I believe. I DNF'd that one, but I was still super excited for this. I'm not going to go too much into the synopsis for this one. In this one, we have our main character Hazel, and she's the 13th and youngest child in her family. She's definitely treated as like an afterthought, if she's even thought of at all. Then some stuff happens and it just kind of goes from there. Again, I don't want to go into detail. I would highly, highly recommend going to this one knowing as little as possible, just because it is complex, and I just think it'd be really fun to go into this one knowing like nothing. The next one I read is Voyage of the Damned, and this one I gave 3.5 stars. This one is pitched as like an Agatha Christie, but on a boat in like a magical world, and I think that's very accurate. So in this one we have 12 different characters. Our main character is Ganymedes. He's geographically from a part of this world that's just considered like less than and kind of like an afterthought, but he's on this boat, and at the very beginning someone ends up being unalived, and then it just kind of spirals from there. It's very much Agatha Christie in that way. It's not like a locked room mystery, it's more like a locked ship. They're at sea on this boat, so there's really nowhere for them to go, and it's super interesting because these characters have known each other since they were younger, but a lot of them don't really like know each other, if that makes sense. So this one was fun. I did give it 3.5 stars. It kept me entertained. There were times where I would put it down and not really feel compelled to pick it back up, but once I did pick it up, I was like flying through it. So I would really recommend this if you like YA fantasy. The next one I have is The Dagger and The Flame, and this is the first one in a new series coming up. I'm just going to read quickly a bit off the back because I think it explains it better than I could. So it says, in the dark underbelly of a beautiful city, two rival gang members are pitted against each other in a deadly game of revenge, where the most dangerous mistake of all is falling in love. So this one is dual POV. We have Sarah and we have Ransom. They are, like I said, from like rival gangs in the city of Fantôme. They're most definitely pitted against each other. I really love the world building in this one. There was very much like not a dull moment kind of vibes. There's a large found family aspect in this, and I really love that. If you like YA fantasy and like YA romantasy in general, then I think you would probably really like this one. Next, I have Belladonna, and this one I gave 4.25 stars. There's been so much hype around this one, so I'm really glad that I finally picked it up. Since then, I've also read the sequel, Foxglove, I think it's called. We have our main character Signa, and she was orphaned when she was a baby, and since then she's been raised by like a whole host of guardians, and they all end up passing away in like some way, and so she's starting to become known as like cursed with death or something like that. She's then sent to live with the Hawthorns at Thorn Grove. She believes that there's some nefarious stuff going on. She believes that someone was poisoned, and she wants to get to the bottom of it because she doesn't think it's her. She doesn't think she's cursed, and she wants to prove to people that she's not. So this one definitely lived up to the hype for me. Unfortunately, I didn't love the sequel as much, but I'll get into that next month with my November wrap up. The characters in this book are super interesting, and I really loved our main character Signa. And if you've been wondering about this one and maybe wanting to pick it up, I would really recommend that you do. Next, I have All Our Hidden Gifts, and this one I really loved. This one is set in Ireland, and we have our main character Maeve. She's kind of an outcast at her school, and she's known for always kind of getting in trouble. One day while she's in detention, she finds these tarot cards, and she starts doing readings on her classmates. They end up being super accurate, so she gains popularity and friends based on this. However, her ex-best friend gets a reading and then goes missing. This one was actually a lot more magical realism and had like a lot more fantasy aspects than I was expecting, which I absolutely loved. The mix of real world and fantasy was so impeccably done. There's, I think, 2 more in this series, and I'm really excited to pick up the next one. Lastly, for this category, I have A Fire in the Flesh, and this is the 3rd book in the Flesh and Fire series, which is the prequel series to the From Blood and Ash series. The prequel series I'm absolutely loving. This is the 3rd one. The 4th one in the prequel series just came out, and I believe that's going to be the last one in the prequel series. This one I was definitely disappointed by. I gave it 3.5 stars, and I was expecting it to be at least 4. It was like a low 3.5. I may even bump that down to 3. I just felt like kind of disappointed. Not a lot happened, and it was very surface level. I feel like it was way too long for what actually happened, which I saw in Goodreads reviews is like kind of a common sentiment that a lot of us are thinking. I saw one that said like this book could have been an email, which is so true. It definitely could have been condensed and either added to the end of the 2nd book or probably to the beginning of what's now the 4th. It's this long for what? The font is tiny, the pages are super thin, so it's like way longer than it looks. I just didn't love it. I'm not going to go into details about the synopsis just because it is the 3rd in a series, which is a prequel series to a completely other series, but I was definitely let down by this one. Lastly is the middle grade category, and I have 3 books in this one. The first one being The Age of Enchantment, and this is the first in a new series called The Chronicles of Weatherwhy. And the world building in this one is very interesting. So everyone has magic, and people can wield magic either related to fall, winter, spring, or summer. However, there are some people that can wield magic from all 4 seasons, and they're sent to like a special institute to really like hone in on this power and become kind of like experts at this. We have our main character Juniper, and she is a twin brother. Found out that she's able to wield all 4 seasons, however her twin brother can only wield 1. So she is sent to this institute, and it's told in 2 different points of view. We have hers and her brother's, and the world building was so fun. I really liked it. I love the cast of characters in both points of view because Juniper and her brother are separated since Juniper is at the institute. If you like fantasy middle grade, I would highly recommend checking this one out. It was a super fun time, and I read this one super quickly. The next middle grade I read is The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane, and this one I gave 3 stars. We have our main character Emmy, and her dad disappeared a long time ago, and her mom is too busy to raise her, so she gets sent to a prestigious boarding school in England. However, before she leaves, she finds a hidden box of things that had belonged to her dad, including a medallion, and she takes that medallion with her to this school. This one isn't straight fantasy, it's definitely like magical realism. When she gets to the school, she ends up stumbling across this super secret society, and she's also finding like strange symbols etched on the wall that match her dad's medallion. So she's wondering if maybe her dad had something to do with this secret society, and maybe that's why he went missing. She's not sure, but she's looking into it. This one had a sequel come out in 2020, so I think it's just a duology, but I'm definitely going to pick up the sequel next October. And lastly, I have The Pumpkin Princess and the Forever Knight. This one, the cover is so cool. I absolutely loved it. In this one, we have our main character Eve, and she is running away from an orphanage one night. She stumbles across this being who is like the Pumpkin King, and he whisks her away to this like other realm, this fantasy realm, where there's a bunch of different like people and creatures. As she's living there and getting to know everyone, a sinister scheme starts to kind of present itself and is threatening to take everything away from Eve. So she's kind of figuring out what's going on. Like I said, I gave this one 3 stars. It was kind of slow, but it was a fun read for October. If you do like middle grade fantasy, I would recommend this one, but I would also recommend saving it for October. So that is it for my October wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments what your favorite book of October was or your biggest letdown, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye.